My parents sold my house and car to get $800,000 for my sister to invest in stocks. I found out they forged documents to make it legal. I took them to court and made them pay the ultimate price. Now they're begging me for mercy. Hey Reddit, I'm Laurel31F and this is the story of how my own parents sold the house and car I paid for with my own hands to fund my sister's ridiculous dream of becoming the next stock market prodigy. I'm not kidding. They forged my signature, lied to lawyers and thought they'd get away with it. But I wasn't the same girl they pushed around all my life. Let's rewind. I bought my house when I was 28. It wasn't a mansion or anything, but it was mine. A modest 3-bedroom place in a peaceful neighborhood in Oregon. I'd worked 60 to 70-hour weeks as a software developer and saved for nearly a decade. The car, a sleek black Tesla I got as a treat to myself after a big product launch, was my reward after years of being the family doormat. Growing up, my parents always favored my younger sister Fiona. She was the princess. Blonde, bubbly, and chronically irresponsible. Failed her first year of college twice, dropped out of 3 business ventures my dad invested in, and yet she could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one. The quiet achiever. The one who paid her way through school with scholarships and ramen noodles. My parents barely noticed unless they needed something. Free tech help. Loan money. Babysitting Fiona when she got into some mess. I gave and gave until I finally moved 2 hours away and started building a life that felt like mine. For once I felt in control. No more emotional manipulation. No more silent guilt trips. Just peace. Until a few months ago. It started when I came home from a work retreat and noticed something was off. My neighbor, a sweet older woman named Dorothy, waved as I pulled into my driveway. Then froze. She walked over and asked, confused, if I was moving back in. I blinked. I never moved out. She gave me a weird look and said, "Oh honey, I saw a moving truck here last weekend. And new people came by. Thought you sold the place." I laughed it off. Maybe she was mistaken. I unlocked my front door. Or tried to. It didn't work. My house key. My lock. My front door. Nothing. A sinking feeling hit me. I tried calling my parents. No answer. Fiona. Straight to voicemail. I called my lawyer friend Mark, who told me to go straight to the county property record site. I did. The house was no longer in my name. It had been sold. 4 days ago. For $760,000. I stared at the screen. My hands trembling. I checked the sale documents online. There it was. My name. My signature. Everything looked legit. Except I never signed anything. I didn't even know the house was listed. I was locked out of my own life. That night I slept on my friend Julia's couch. Too shocked to cry. I called my bank the next morning and found my car had also been sold the same week. The payment had gone through a joint account I opened years ago and forgot about. The one I shared with my parents briefly when I was helping them refinance their mortgage. They had access. But they needed my ID, right? Or so I thought. I went to the police. Filed a report for fraud. The officer looked skeptical at first. Like maybe I was a bitter daughter caught in some messy family drama. But once I pulled out my work badge, my tax records, and all the paperwork I didn't sign, his expression changed. He told me to lawyer up immediately. I confronted my parents at their home. Fiona was there too, lounging on the couch like a queen. My mom acted surprised. "Laurel, sweetie, we thought you were going to rent it out. Fiona needed capital for her stock investment firm. She's finally found her calling. We just streamlined the process for you." Streamlined? My dad tried to reason with me. "You weren't even using the guest room. You're barely home. Fiona's business is the future of this family." My voice cracked. "You sold my house. My car. Without my permission. You forged documents." Fiona laughed. "Oh my God, are you seriously going to cry? You're being dramatic." I saw red. I told him I had already spoken to a lawyer. That I knew about the forgery. That the documents would be examined in court. And that I was filing a lawsuit. My dad had the nerve to say, "You take your own parents to court? Over money? No. Not over money. Over theft. Over betrayal. Over the fact that they treated me like a backup plan while handing Fiona everything she ever wanted. Again. And that's when Fiona snapped. You've always been jealous of me. Just admit it. You want to see me fail because you're miserable. I didn't even respond. I walked out. The next few weeks were chaos. My lawyer Mark and his firm got involved immediately. They found the notary's stamp on the documents was suspicious. The witnesses didn't check out. Fiona's boyfriend, who had been conveniently listed as a witness, had a record for fraud. It was unraveling fast. Even more shocking. The $800,000 wasn't just for stock investment. It was already nearly gone. We traced the transfers. Fiona had invested in a risky crypto stock hybrid fund her online mentor told her about. She also bought luxury clothes, electronics, and 2 trips to Dubai and South Korea. I was furious but also terrified. If the judge didn't side with me, I'd have nothing. I'd be forced to rebuild my life from scratch. And the cherry on top, my own parents had written a public Facebook post painting me as an ungrateful daughter suing her dying parents. My dad even claimed he had heart complications triggered by my actions. But the truth was already on my side. I just had to hold the line. As the court date approached, I kept working, kept collecting evidence, and kept reliving every moment that led up to this. The birthday parties Fiona ruined but got celebrated for. The school awards I won that got brushed aside. The apartment I paid for when they claimed they couldn't afford groceries, only to find out they had booked a week-long vacation. Every memory flooded back. And I realized something. This wasn't just about a house. Or a car. This was about finally ending the cycle. The night before the hearing, I stood outside the courthouse steps and took a deep breath. Whatever happened the next day, I knew I'd chosen the right path. I wasn't the background character anymore. I was about to take the lead role in court. The morning of the hearing, I arrived early. My lawyer Mark met me outside the courtroom, his face steady but serious. He had a thick folder in hand filled with emails, timestamps, flagged signature comparisons, and bank statements. My hands were shaking but my mind was sharp. Inside, Fiona sat at the defendant's table like she was on the set of some reality TV show. Hair perfectly curled, designer handbags sitting beside her chair. My parents sat just behind her, whispering and shooting me smug glances. Like they still thought this was some big misunderstanding and not a full-on felony case. But then the judge walked in. And reality started to set in. Opening statements began. My side went first. Mark laid out the facts clearly and calmly. Property and vehicles sold without consent. Signatures forged. Notarization illegally processed. Funds redirected to a high-risk personal investment under false pretenses. Then came Fiona's defense. Her lawyer claimed that I had verbally agreed to the sale. That I was, quote, planning to relocate to Silicon Valley and had given permission to act on her behalf. My jaw clenched. That was a lie I never even considered they'd make up. Worse, they tried to introduce a handwritten note supposedly from me giving them approval to act as my representatives. Mark tore that note apart like a hawk. First, he showed that the pen ink use didn't exist until a year after the letter was allegedly written. Then he introduced a handwriting expert who confirmed that the loop spacing and pressure were inconsistent with my writing. Strike one. Then we brought in the notary who supposedly authenticated the sale documents. Except that notary didn't exist. Her name was real, but she hadn't notarized anything in our county in over 6 years. She'd moved to Florida. When contacted, she gave a written statement that she had never notarized documents for my family. Not even once. Strike two. Finally, we traced the actual banking trails. The joint account used for the car payment hadn't been touched in years until suddenly it had been reactivated just days before the transaction. The login came from my parents' IP address. The bank camera footage showed Fiona and my dad physically withdrawing money the morning the sale was finalized. Strike three. By the time we got to witness testimonies, even the judge looked visibly disturbed. I didn't even have to say much. I just answered what I needed to. The betrayal came through in my voice. The judge watched me closely, nodding slightly every time I composed myself. She was the kind of person who had probably seen hundreds of messy family cases, but this one clearly left a bad taste. Then Fiona took the stand. It was a disaster. She rolled her eyes at my lawyer's questions. Snapped back with attitude. When asked what she did with the $800,000, she responded, "It's my money now. I can spend it how I want." Her lawyer nearly face-bombed. Mark stood up again. "Correction, Ms. Rivers. It was Laurel's money. Her house. Her car. Her signature forged." Fiona crossed her arms. My parents didn't seem any more composed. My mom actually shouted from the audience, "We did it for the family." She was never going to use that house anyway. The judge slammed her gavel and had her removed from the room. I just sat there in silence, a pit of grief in my chest where love used to be. After 3 long days, the ruling came down. My house sale was declared fraudulent. The title was reversed. I was reinstated as the rightful owner. My car could not be recovered, but I was awarded full compensation plus damages. But it didn't stop there. Because of the forged documents and falsified notary, both my parents and Fiona were charged with criminal fraud and identity theft. The DA opened a separate investigation. The court ordered them to pay restitution $760,000 plus interest $40,000 for the car, $60,000 in damages, and legal fees, a 10-year restriction from managing, accessing, or controlling any of my financial accounts or personal information. They were stunned. Fiona burst into tears and wailed that she had nothing left. My dad looked pale. My mom kept whispering about how the family was broken forever. And I walked out with my head held high. It didn't feel like a victory, not at first. Just silence. A dull ache in my chest. The kind of pain that only comes when you realize the people who raised you were capable of destroying you. Over the following months, I repaired what I could. The new homeowners, the ones who had been unknowingly involved in the illegal house sale, were refunded and compensated through insurance. I moved back in and changed every lock, security system, and legal setting tied to my name. The car was long gone. I bought a used SUV instead. Somehow the luxury of the Tesla felt tainted. I blocked my family on everything. Not just for the drama. For my peace. But they didn't stop trying. My parents sent letters, voicemails, emails. They didn't apologize, just begged me not to press criminal charges any further. My mom even tried to guilt me by saying I was ruining Fiona's future. Funny. They never cared about mine. 6 months later, Fiona's investment company had dissolved. Her partner, the shady online mentor, had vanished with what little remained of her funds. She was now working as a barista, according to a friend who ran into her. My parents filed for bankruptcy. Their retirement was gone. And me. I started fresh. Quietly. I didn't announce it online. I didn't celebrate. But I did buy a new desk for my home office. I planted a row of sunflowers in the backyard. I adopted a golden retriever named Jasper. And I signed the final court document with steady hands. A simple declaration of financial closure. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I finally understood that protecting your peace isn't cruel. It's survival. My family paid the ultimate price. Not because I took them down. But because they bet everything on betrayal and lost.